Hi, besties. It's been a while and it has been a crazy week. I think we can all agree on that, no matter where we fall on the political spectrum. Oh my gosh. The past 7 days have been quite a roller coaster, and so we need to talk about it. I've been sick. In this moment, I'm feeling much better. I put on makeup and everything for this, so that's pretty exciting. Hopefully, we'll be back at everything tomorrow. But today I wanted to actually take a look at some of these charts, which I hadn't even looked at until tonight, and I thought I just want to take a look. Let's just take a look. Um, Okay, now we have two different times to run this chart from, which is kind of interesting in and of itself. Okay, what I looked for, of course, first was what time did they actually call the race for Donald Trump? And the time that came up was 2:24 a.m. from Pennsylvania. I ran it from Washington, D.C. It's still Eastern time. The chart will be like essentially the same. But this is the time in the night that the race was considered done. But as we know, like there are still, I mean, Utah is still counting votes right now. Right now. I mean, it's been days and days, and Utah and Arizona are still not done counting all of their votes for whatever reason. Um, so the time that Donald Trump actually won all 270 electoral college votes that he needed to win was a little bit later, and we're going to take a look at that chart as well. But basically, if we need a little reminder, of course, like to be declared the president, they have to win 270 electoral college votes, but not all states are considered in play. So you have states like Utah, where I live, where can you even imagine if Utah went to a Democrat? Like, no, no one can imagine that. So it's kind of a safe, like 6 electoral college votes for the Republican, whoever the Republican is, like every time. So you have these red states, you have these blue states, and then you have the swing states, which are the ones that you just don't know which direction they're going to go. And that's where, the question is really taking place. Like, who's going to win these swing states? And whoever wins the swing states determines the election. And probably we all know that, but the differences in these two time periods, these two times that we get to run these two charts from, we have the time that Donald Trump won Pennsylvania, which was the moment that everybody knew, okay, he has the votes. He has definitely he's definitely going to win, not because he had already received all the votes that he needed to win, but because of all of the assumptions that like all of these states are red states and they will stay red, and so therefore he will absolutely win. The moment when he actually got 270 electoral college votes took place sometime later at 5:35 a.m. in Wisconsin, and that was the actual moment that he truly did win. So we have these two times that I wanted to take a look at. The time where he was declared the winner and the time where he actually was the winner, which is two different times. And I'm not really sure which one really counts as like the first breath of this moment. Okay, so I'm interested to hear what you have to say, but I wanted to look at these two charts and just take a look, I guess, for scientific purposes and see what we're kind of looking at. So let's pull up those charts again. The first one we're going to take a look at is the moment that he was declared the winner by basically the news media. Excuse me. Um, which took place at 2:24 a.m. Now, this chart is very intriguing to me. Why? Of course, because this Jupiter is exact the midheaven at 20 degrees of Gemini, which, you know, wherever Jupiter is in a chart, you expect to see some blessings, but Jupiter exacts the midheaven. The midheaven is like your destiny. It's like your reputation. It's how the world sees you. Big blessings on how the world is seeing this. That's like, I don't know. When I see this, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a rendezvous with destiny. It really is. So this is a really interesting thing to have in the chart. And of course, Donald Trump himself is also a Gemini. And I don't think I have his chart. Oh no, I do. I was gonna say I don't have it really close here, but okay, and look at that. His natal midheaven is also at 20 degrees. Sorry, his natal north node is also at 20 degrees of Gemini, and his sun is right there. So what do we have when we put this all together? We have, look at that, the midheaven and Jupiter and his north node and his sun. Like this is like Donald Trump's moment. Um, but it's like literally written in the stars. Love him or hate him, there is a heavenly alignment that has aligned for this moment for him. Like, regardless of how we feel about the man, this is something that we cannot deny. What are the chances? Okay. And the thing about the midheaven is that it moves all the time. You know, it's not like one of these slow moving planets like Pluto that's going to be taking, 244 years to go around the zodiac. The midheaven takes 24 hours to go around the zodiac. Just like the ascendant, it's moving, every minute it's moving a little bit. So this is a really interesting alignment, and you'll see that when I pull up the second chart, which has a totally different midheaven. But I think it is not a coincidence that this is the moment that Donald Trump was declared the winner of that presidential election. Now, I have not looked at this yet, so I just want to just see what we're looking at, but this is really interesting. Right here, we have a stellium across the two charts, which is this 23-degree Saturn, this 25-degree Venus, and this 27-degree part of fortune. Big blessings on him as a manager of money and as a steward of resources. So this is very interesting. And as I'm just saying that out loud, I think it is really interesting that, he ended his campaign, I think, with surplus funds. Somebody fact check me if I'm wrong, but I know for absolute sure that Kamala Harris, is $20 million in debt from her campaign. And so this is a very interesting contrast to have this blessing aligning with the management of resources for him. And then, of course, we got to take a look at this south node, the transiting south node conjunct his Neptune in his natal second house. And I don't super know what to make of that off the top of my head. Neptune can deal with loss. I think Neptune in Libra for him has looked like, oh, plus Chiron and his natal Jupiter, and they're expanding all of that energy. I think we can look at Donald Trump's life and see how he has aligned with the wrong people over and over again. In Libra, we see that with his numerous marriages and other kinds of situations like that. But we also see that with in his last administration, he hired a bunch of people that hated him and that worked against him all the time. Now he has the South Node here. And the interesting thing about particularly older people, when you look at their chart, because how a person's chart manifests in their life obviously changes over time because we learn these new lessons, right? The stuff that really tripped us up as children is going to show up on the chart, and then you're going to master it. And I love reading charts for older people because I'll talk about this and they'll be like, the big life lesson to learn with this is this. And I'll say, oh yeah, I did learn that. This is how I learned that lesson. I think, oh my gosh, you graduate, you've learned the lesson. This is amazing. So I feel hopeful for him just because of his age that, and I think we are seeing his released plans for what he plans to do with this administration differently. Like, he has been learning this lesson. I shouldn't hire people that want to bite me in the back. Like, I should hire people that are openly on my team. So again, like, love him or hate him, I think we can agree that he is learning that lesson. And it looks externally like he is trying to collect people to him now that are going to be furthering his agenda instead of stymieing his agenda. So this is just a really interesting placement on that chart. So let's go back. So again, this is when he was declared the winner. Anything else super, super interesting here? Of course, we've got this moon squaring the north nodes. This tension between the destiny of the moment and the feelings of the people, which I think we are seeing in a pretty real way as far as it is a very divisive situation. I think that um, this election, everybody's saying like he has a mandate, like he won the popular vote and the electoral college and like has this clear mandate. That's what I'm just seeing everywhere. That's what people are saying. But we all know people who have disowned other people over this election, right? Like I'm seeing it in my Facebook feeds, I'm seeing it on my Twitter feeds, I'm seeing it have I in my real life, fortunately, my family members are like kind enough to each other that it doesn't matter if we think differently, like we still can handle each other, um but we are seeing this. We're seeing a lot of division, and I think that moon squaring the nodes is a little bit indicative of that. Okay, so let's go ahead. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say is that this chart has Virgo at 21 degrees as the rising sign, which is interesting because it kind of indicates that this presidency has a flavor of being obsessed with health and rationality and really just going in. I mean, Virgo is such an editor. Like she just loves going through and saying, this is true, this is not true, this is right, and that is wrong, and just cutting out what is wrong and paring things down to what needs to be there. And she does it because she wants things to be healthy. And I think that that is the attitude that I'm seeing, whether or not we agree with the agenda that he's putting forth. Like, hopefully, we can agree that he and his future administration thinks that this is what it's going to take to make America healthy again. Like, everybody has different ideas on what makes a nation healthy, but their idea is that they're going to go in and be this ruthless editor and cut out what's not working and make things healthy again. Okay, let's pull up that other chart. So this chart is also very interesting to me. This is the moment, so the other chart is the moment that Trump was declared the winner of the election, and this is the moment that he actually hit 270 electoral college votes. So we're going to have to kind of come back to this maybe a couple years in and see which one we think was more accurate. Excuse me. I hope I can make it through this video. I haven't talked this much in a long time, since my last video, probably. I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night, suddenly sick. I like sat upright. And that was that. But this chart has a 0-1 degree Scorpio ascendant. And this is really interesting because Scorpio is all about transformation. Ah. So this Scorpio rising and the black moon and the sun right there all in the first house. Scorpio is all about death and rebirth. It's about transformation. It is about pruning off the dead things that have not been working so that new growth can emerge. And I feel like Trump and Bobby Kennedy and Elon Musk have like not been shy about this being the agenda. They want to prune the tree. But for the actual tree itself, this is going to feel very painful. And I think that, I don't know, we'll just have to see how it all plays out now, especially that there's this big drama in the Senate over who will be taking over as the president of the Senate, I think is what is going on, Senate Majority Leader, something like that. Like there's this big drama that's happening with that that's going to impact how these agendas are able to be implemented. But when I saw this rising sign, my instant thought was, oh yes, and look, it's double Scorpio at 0-1 degree and then at 29 degrees. And then we have this interesting matching interception of Gemini and Sagittarius intercepted. So I'll come back to that. But my thought was when I saw this was, oh yes, this is a real representation of what everyone is going to go through with this presidency, whether they are in favor of the agenda or not. This Scorpio rising is going to give such this flavor of pruning, and it will be painful. I'm from Washington, D.C., or like Maryland, right outside. Like my house was right next to the red line of like the Shady Grove end of the red line in Washington, D.C., on the Maryland side. And everyone there, their whole lives rotate around the government. Everybody is a government worker. Everybody is all tied up in this bureaucracy. And if you start snipping at this bureaucracy, a lot of lives are going to be upended. And like now I live in Utah, people's lives are really not, tied to it. But, I grew up there and I lived in Maryland for, I don't know, like almost 30 years. And I just remember the times that, the budget wouldn't get passed and they would like threaten to shut down the government. And literally everybody that I knew would be all upset because it's their lives. Like it is their paycheck. It's like how they pay for their food. And I don't know. I personally am deeply against bureaucracy in generally all of its forms. And so, like, on a principle level, I'm like, snip that bureaucracy, let's cut it out. But I also have so much compassion for the real life people that will be affected by this. And there are more than you think. The federal government right now, the US federal government, is the biggest employer that has ever existed in the history of humanity. Okay. When you start making big cuts to that, it's going to cause some big ripple effects. I think that those ripple effects I think it's necessary. My own personal opinion is there is too much bloat. I actually used to work for the federal government for a short time as an intern, and I got to see the bloat firsthand. You would not believe the laziness, the incompetence. I worked with a man who literally was incapable of writing a complete sentence. And I wish I was kidding you, but he literally did not know how to write a complete sentence with a period at the end and like a capital letter at the beginning. Like it was insane. He spent over 4 hours writing an email to me. And I just walked over to his cubicle. I'm like, hi, is everything okay? Because I only needed 2 sentences of text. Like, what is going on? Can I just like get the answer so I can continue my project? And he's like, I'm so sorry. I've been drafting this email for hours. And I looked at it. Yeah, no capital letters, no punctuation. I'm like, you've been working here for 20 years. What is happening? Like, what? All that is to say, snip. I'm cool with it. Let's snip some of that because it is time. I hate paying my taxes and knowing that's what I'm paying for. I hate that. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair to anybody. I think it is about time that we make it easier to trim the fat. But it is going to come at a personal cost for a lot of people. I think we're going to see some big changes that, I don't know, this little Uranus over here in Taurus is saying we're going to be seeing some big shakeups in the stewardship of property, in the stewardship of how the government is managing land, money. And those things cannot be predicted because Uranus is there. We're just going to have to see for ourselves how it all plays out. Now, this is the other interesting thing about this chart is that it has a Gemini and Sagittarius intercepted. Okay, do you see how this has like no numbers around it and down here has no numbers around it? And do you see these lines? This is the house and it's just fully, this whole entire sign is inside of this house. This entire sign is inside of this house. And what it means is that the energy, those energies in those houses is kind of restricted. It's going to be harder to access. But why I think this is particularly interesting as a chart is because, as we just mentioned, Donald Trump's natal sun is in Gemini, and the United States of America's natal ascendant is in Sagittarius. Let's just double check that because I'm pretty sure that's true. But let's just double check. We'll open the chart of America's birthday. Yeah, it is a 12th degree Sagittarius ascendant. So this is a really interesting axis to have intercepted. The Donald Trump's sun and America's rising sign, these are really core energies that are like trapped. Where are they trapped? In the 8th house of transformation and in the 2nd house of resources. This is actually the house that Taurus owns, and this is the house that Scorpio owns. So this is a really interesting flavor of a lot of changing. That's also kind of perhaps restricted. Um, a lot of blessings that might be hidden, with this Jupiter in there, Venus in there, Mercury in there. So with this chart, the other chart had that midheaven exact Jupiter, and this chart really doesn't. Let's pull up that America's chart again as well. I was going to say, this midheaven looks like it's real close to America's natal north node, and it sure is. It's 2 degrees away. So to me, that says, okay, whatever is going on here, again, love him or hate him, whatever's going on here, rendezvous with destiny. What this is telling me is that this is America's destiny, is to deal with this presidency, with this, whatever moment we have found ourselves in. This is the destiny of this nation to deal with it at this time, you know, especially when we look at this Chiron, excuse me, Chiron exact. This is a time to be digging into America's deepest soul wounds so that we can heal them. And it may not be pretty. Again, as I was, mentioning with my own personal ties to the area that's going to be experiencing some robust shifting very soon, it may not be fun, but it does look like the stars have aligned for it. I have to go and cough my brains out. Okay, love you guys. Bye.